Good morning, everyone. This is Rick Murphy with AllNet. I want to thank you again for taking the time to join us this morning. This morning we've got John Fisher. John is the sales manager for the HVAC automation division of Aprilaire, a very large manufacturer in the HVAC space based out of Madison, Wisconsin. So I wanted to cover some things very quickly. First and foremost, the session today is being recorded and it will be archived on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is AllNet Distributing. So if you've got any of the other members of your staff who were not able to attend the live event, the archive link will be shared with you and you can feel free to share it with them. So because it will be posted on YouTube, we're not going to talk pricing today, but each of you are eligible for promotional pricing, and it was mentioned in the original email, and a follow-up email will be coming to as well. With details on that promotion. The format of the AllNet webinar series is that all attendees are muted. So if you have questions during the course of the presentation, please feel free to type them into the questions box. You should see a banner or a column along the right-hand side, and one of the tabs says questions. So feel free to type the questions into that area, and we will do a short Q&A with John after the presentation. And again, all of our live presentations qualify for CDS CEU credits. So if any of you have a CDS certification and you'd like to redeem the CEU credit toward your renewal, please follow up with Bill Zidek or myself after the call if you have not done that before. If you have, it's simple, just send it over to David Whitney as you have been. So without any further ado, here's John Fisher from Aprilaire.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate you putting this together for us. So I'm going to get started. Obviously, Rick is with AllNet, and I'm doing the Aprilaire training. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on who is Aprilaire. We're a division of Research Products. We're focused on indoor air quality. We've got a great products that are sold to HVAC contractors, a great name that's actually with the great name that resonates with the HVAC contractors. As I mentioned, we focus on indoor air quality. We're actually, this year is an 80-year birthday, so we're actually now an 80-year-old company. The last 65 years we've been focused on the HVAC industry, and we're up to almost 20 years in the automation industry when we acquired a company called Enerzone Systems out of Dallas, Texas. That brings the that's where I get started into this picture. My background is HVAC. Graduated high school in '94. Was a service technician from '94 to '99. In '99, when Aprilaire bought Enerzone, they were looking for a tech support person to move down to Texas, and was doing an interview with them, and they said, "Yeah, we bought this company, and they make thermostats that talk to computers." Little did they know those computers were at that time AMX and Crestron. They had no clue what automation was or where it was going. Anyway, so I did tech support for Aprilaire for many years. And then in '07, I left. I worked for various different control systems, from NetStreams to Savant, Colorado VNet, URC. Obviously, Savant and URC are doing very well as a control system and a universal remote control company. But I was a salesperson for them in various regions. So let's see here. Rick, I have a question. No, never mind. So thermostats aren't sexy. We'll get in, obviously, we're going to talk about thermostats, how to integrate with your control systems. Thermostats, they're not sexy, but they are the fastest growing smart category in the IoT category and the smart side of things. So it is something that you guys should be selling on every project. Keep in mind, every home has at least one, if not, 2 or 3, or I've been on projects where there's 50 thermostats in a home. So there's at least one in every home. You should be discussing this with your clients because that is a something that is critical to the comfort of the home. But it's more than just temperature control. We can also control the humidity levels in your house. AllNet being a Midwest-based company selling to the Chicagoland, Minneapolis, Detroit, Indy, I think those are the locations that you've got, have very similar climate as what we have experienced in the Midwest. And I can tell you over the last couple of days when it was 90 degrees here in Madison, Wisconsin, it was also 75% relative humidity. So yes, I can keep my house at 70 degrees, but it actually almost feels like a meat locker because there's so much humidity. And that's where Aprilaire understands, obviously, about either adding humidity in the middle of winter or removing humidity in the summer as well. And those are things that our experience can help you discuss that, hey, if you put in a dehumidifier, we no longer have to keep it at 70 degrees in the middle of summer. We can actually keep it at 75 or 76 degrees and still feel as comfortable with that. And that's the whole aspect of air quality that we bring to it. Obviously, we also have air filters that attach to the heating and air conditioning system, as well as fresh air, bringing in fresh air, which is actually becoming code in a lot of states as well. So we do have all aspects of air quality, but again, we're going to focus on thermostats, and again, a lot of guys think of thermostat as climate control, but it's more than just climate control. It's also, making sure you have being able to control the relative humidity so that you're comfortable inside of the house. Thermostats are a simple installation, simple setup. They're easy to integrate, and they do offer some decent margins for you as well, or can offer some decent margins for you. So what's going on? How come I can't advance the slide? Here we go. So the opportunity currently, there was about 12 million homes have smart thermostats, and that's as of the beginning of 2017. I believe this was Parks Associates estimates that number will grow from 12 million homes to 33 million by the end of 2020. So we got a year and a half to grow, 20,000 thermostats, 20,000 homes in America will have a smart thermostat. And again, this is a prediction by Parks Associates. There's three ways that a homeowner can get a thermostat. Obviously, HVAC contractor or their plumber, a low voltage contractor like yourself, or they could go to the DIY store like a Home Depot or a Lowe's type company, or they can also order it on Amazon or any other type of online e-tail type application. Clearly, I'm talking to the system integrators and the low voltage contractors. We're more than happy to sell to you guys so that you guys are able to integrate with the control systems as well. So it's a simple installation. If you look at a traditional thermostat, there's anywhere from 3 wires up to 5 or 6 wires. When you start adding indoor air quality, they can get a little bit more complicated with 10 or 12 wires. But keep in mind that if you boil it down to the simple thermostat, it's 4 or 5 wires, and it's pretty simple for an installation. With Aprilaire, we do have our automation thermostats have a standalone application. So if you're not using a integration system, or if the integration the control system is not ready to be installed or it hasn't been programmed, what have you, you can use the Aprilaire standalone app until you're ready to switch it over to the control system, and it's a simple software setting inside of our thermostat. So why and when should you sell climate? The consumers demand it. Again, it's $2.3 billion industry by 2023. And in 2013, 2014, and actually 2015, climate control was the most used smart device interacted with by consumers. So we know that there's a demand that the consumer wants to know what their climate is, be able to adjust it. Not to mention the HVAC system, they haven't really gotten super efficient. So they are also your largest utility draw to a consumer as well inside the house. So managing your temperature is really crucial when you're starting to look at your energy bill as well. So as I mentioned, it's an additional category of control. Most of you guys are already doing lighting or camera control or distributed audio, what have you. Adding in thermostats makes the control system a little bit more of an all-in-one control system. As I mentioned earlier, it's a simple installation, as little as 5 wires, as many as 7 or 8 wires, and they're very easy to integrate with the control systems. Who should be selling? Again, everyone should be selling it. You guys are in a couple homes a day. You should be at least talking to your customer about HVAC control, and it's just another source of revenue for you. So when should you start the conversation? In my opinion, you should start it as soon as possible. HVAC systems can be changed or redesigned in new construction if needed to work with a thermostat or a control. It's not very often that they do, but if you get into the conversation early on, it's possible that you can work with the mechanical contractor to make sure it does work with a traditional thermostat. Just like you guys, HVAC contractors are going to do top-down selling. So they're going to lead with the best products, which every HVAC manufacturer has a top-of-the-line product that has a proprietary thermostat. But when you boil it down, if you just take a step down into where you can use a traditional thermostat, you're not losing a super ton amount of efficiency. You're not losing too much feature set from going from a 20 SEER piece of equipment down to an 18 SEER piece of equipment. In Madison, I did a project in Florida for a buddy of mine, and he went from a 21 SEER proprietary piece of equipment. He replaced it out with a 19 SEER piece of HVAC equipment. His bill went up $12 a month. So the HVAC contractor is going to say, oh, this is super efficient and what have you. In the grand scheme of things, being able to control it on his control system was way more important than the $12 a month that he was saving in May, June, July, August, so on and so forth. So, and again, that's going to be an average when your furnace is running or what have you. So what I say is if it is new construction, talk to the mechanical contractor, talk to your consumer, verify that yes, HVAC is important. Get us involved early, as early as we possibly can, so that we make sure that the right HVAC system is being installed, rather than getting in to the point where we've got paint on the walls and the HVAC system's been running for 3-4 months, and okay, we're ready to integrate, swap out that thermostat. Oh, we can't do that because it happened to be that top of the line product that the HVAC contractor installed. So make sure we do that. That we talk to them as soon as possible about HVAC. Keep in mind, HVAC systems last about 15 to 20 years, or 10 to 15 years at least. So once they have it installed, unless that's a super high priority, chances are they're going to be stuck with that thermostat for 10 to 15 years before they put in a new piece of HVAC equipment that can work with a traditional thermostat. So this is truly a long-term product that is going to stay in the house for a fair amount of time. It's not like swapping out a TV. It's not like swapping out a light switch or what have you. This is something that's there for quite a long time. So why Aprilaire? Because the cost of comfort shouldn't be your privacy. Not going to mention any names. There's more to comfort than just basic heating and cooling. As you can see by this thermostat, it's a traditional temperature controlled device. It doesn't take into account that humidity like I explained a little bit earlier. So, because health is a better investment than diagnostics. So you look at this thermostat on the wall. Yeah, it's great, it's color and what have you, but what's the benefit for the consumer? There's really not a ton of benefit for the consumer. As I mentioned earlier, the dealer in Florida, it saved him $12 a month on his utility bill, but he couldn't integrate it with his control system. And again, a lot of those super high-end high-end HVAC systems that require proprietary controls, most of the benefit is diagnostics for the HVAC contractor. They'll hook a computer up to the thermostat and say, oh, this is, we got to change this widget or whatever. It's almost like mechanics, they no longer take off a carburetor and tweak the carburetor or what have you. They hook up a computer to the car, and the car tells them what needs to be changed or tweaked or software changes, so on and so forth. It's very similar to this HVAC system that's being installed. So, and last but not least, you don't get paid when a homeowner buys from retail. So this is why you should be discussing HVAC with your clients. So again, why Aprilaire? Like I mentioned earlier, almost 70 years in the HVAC industry. We've got a solid name with HVAC, with the HVAC contractors. We have a 5-year warranty. Most of the thermostats that you're buying have a 1-year or a 90-day warranty. Whereas we actually, we don't become 80 years old by offering, pretty shoddy product or what have you. So we really do build reliable product, and we stand behind it, with a 5-year warranty. Application support. I've recently been called into a couple of projects where customers like, I don't know what kind of thermostat I have, or they've got this thermostat, and I do a couple quick Google searches and I find out what they're using, and I'm able to switch the thermostat out or walk the system integrator through how to switch out what they currently have on the project over to a thermostat that can also be integrated with the whole house major control system. So feel free to, Rick's got my phone number. I don't know if I added this to the, added my contact info, but obviously AllNet knows how to get a hold of me. We're more than happy to help design projects or answer any type of questions that you may have. As I mentioned earlier, profit, there's higher profits with an Aprilaire product over something that you buy through or that's available through e-tailers or on a retail floor. You're not going to see us. We are a trade product only, so you're not going to see us at Home Depot or what have you. So, and then of course you got to make sure that the thermostat that you are selecting works with the automation system you're installing. Aprilaire, as I mentioned earlier, in '99 when we bought Enerzone systems, at the time there was only 2 manufacturers. It was Crestron and AMX. So we're one of the earliest HVAC suppliers for automation. Since then we've got we've added Elan and Control4 and Savant, URC, RTI, and as new control companies come, we'll definitely be reaching out to them to say, hey, we need to create a driver or what have you. So we're definitely committed to the automation channel or the automation market, and make sure that you guys will have a product that will work with your control systems. Again, works with all major automation systems. We'll go through some of our products here in a little bit, but we've got two different versions of thermostats. One that works off of a Wi-Fi thermostat that allows us to communicate via the wireless network inside of the house. The beauty is when you are integrating with a major automation system, our Wi-Fi communications does not leave the house. It actually stays on the local area network. A lot of the other third-party thermostats actually communicate to a cloud, so that third-party thermostat could make a change to the cloud. They could have, a server go down or what have you, or you could just purely lose internet connection inside of a house, and all of a sudden you're sitting there watching your TV and you're getting a little warm or a little cold and you want to adjust it. Well, gee, the thermostat's 10 feet away, but I don't have an internet connection, so I can't actually control it. So not to mention there's a little bit longer latency, and of course it requires that internet connection. So again, Aprilaire is a recognized name by HVAC contractors. We've been selling to those contractors for 65 years. And we do have a standalone app that gives remote access, free remote access to the client if the control system is not ready to be commissioned at that time. So here's a couple of our products. Our 8810. I'm going to go specifically off of our Wi-Fi thermostats. Note that all of our Wi-Fi thermostats will require a common wire. So if you're doing basic heating, air conditioning, and fan control, you're going to need a minimum of 5 wires at the thermostat. And if you don't have those wires, we have other solutions. Don't think that we can't do something even if you don't have the 5 wires. We do have a couple of other solutions for you as well. So the 8810 is our entry-level thermostat. This one does just temperature control. So this would be similar to one of the 2 round thermostats that we showed earlier. But it's a basic Wi-Fi thermostat, requires 5 wires. It does have an event-based air filtration screen or feature set inside of that thermostat, so we can actually schedule either like a 3-hour event or a 24-hour event for air filtration. It only supports outdoor temperature sensor. It does not support any of the other remote sensors that I'll get into a little bit later on. But like I said, this is our entry-level thermostat, and also there is no humidity control, but it does do a good job. It is a universal thermostat, so it will work with heat pump or a conventional heating cooling system, single-stage or multi-stage piece of equipment. The 8820 is our step-up thermostat that allows us to control not only temperature. Again, it's a universal thermostat, so heat pump, heat cool, multi-stage piece of equipment. We've got that done. But there's an additional relay that gives us the ability to control either a humidifier or a dehumidifier. Or I mentioned earlier that ventilation is becoming a thing based on how tight the homes are being built. So we've got that one additional relay that allows us to control either a humidifier, the dehumidifier, or a fresh air ventilation system. It includes an 8052, which is our outdoor temperature sensor. It is a touch screen as well, so you'll notice there are no hard buttons on this thermostat. Again, it's Wi-Fi, and it does require a common wire from the HVAC system to power up the Wi-Fi chip or to power up the thermostat. This is actually our most common thermostat in the audio video world, just due to the fact that it's a touch screen. It offers all the features of that a traditional thermostat has. Plus, it also integrates with the control system. So the 8830 and the 8840 are actually 2-part thermostats. The 8830 has the monochrome, like 4-inch monochrome touchscreen, whereas the 8840 has a 7-inch color touchscreen. As far as that's the only difference between the two, obviously, along with the different price points as well. But the beauty of the 8830 and 40 is that it is two pieces. So you've got the user interface, and then you've basically got the relay board at the that's going to be located at the HVAC system. Here's one of the solutions that I mentioned. If you don't have 5 wires behind the thermostat in order to communicate, this is actually one of our solutions that only requires 3 wires. So between the user interface and the relay board, or our equipment control module, we only need 3 wires between the two. So yes, it's a little scary because I'm not just taking off an old thermostat, putting on a different thermostat. I do have to do a little bit of rewiring, but once once an integrator does this once or twice, the mystery is kind of like resolved, or what have you. There's really not too big of a deal to rewire and put this piece down. Not to mention, it offers not only the HVAC control, but we can control all aspects of your air quality environment. So we can control temperature, we can control humidity. There's independent humidifier and dehumidifier terminals. There's also a ventilation terminals on the equipment control module as well, allowing us to control all aspects of the climate, or of the air quality and the comfort of the air. So here's you'll see this is the 3 wires going from the user interface down to our equipment control module. It's pretty simple. If you look at the equipment control module, you'll see that the terminals are designated 1, 2, and 3. And if I were to actually pop off the user interface and look at the sub base, there are terminals labeled 1, 2, and 3. So 1 goes to 1, 2 goes to 2, and 3 goes to 3. So it's pretty self-explanatory. You may not even have to open up the installation manuals for that. The 8830 does also offer, both the 8830 and 40 also offers the option for a flush mount or a remote temperature sensor. So if I don't want to put the thermostat in the area that it's controlling, we could actually connect up the optional flush mount temperature sensor. If you are controlling both temperature and relative humidity, please note that the 8051 flush mount temperature only does temperature control. So if we're controlling the RH, we would monitor the relative humidity based off of where that thermostat is located, even though the temperature would be in the room that it's controlling. So when we take a look at the equipment control module, on the right-hand side, at the very top, you'll see all of the traditional thermostat inputs. So you've got an R, a W, a Y, a G, so on and so forth. So this is where you're going to hook up your traditional or your HVAC system, and it's going to wire just like a regular thermostat wires. Granted, this piece doesn't have a display, but again, all we did was take out the relays so that we do have that just a 3-wire connection between the user interface down to this relay board. This is what I've got in my house, and I've got it attached to the return ductwork of the heating and air conditioning system, and it does does a marvelous job. So, and it was super easy to install. The differences between this product versus the 8810 or an 8820 is in a traditional or a conventional heat-cool system. We actually have 3 stages of heat and 3 stages of cooling. And in a heat pump application, we actually have 4 stages of heating with 3 stages of cooling. So, which aren't super. There's not a lot of equipment that supports 3 stages of heating and cooling. But if you do have equipment, we can control it. We can control that 3 stages of heating and cooling. As far as the indoor air quality aspect of it, this is our humidifier, dehumidifier, so on and so forth. You'll notice that we've got hum terminals, which stands for humidifier. Then we've got 3 different dehumidifier terminals, with the middle one being a common wire, and then depending on the dehumidifier, whether we need to close a relay or open a relay, we've got our 2 options for that. Fresh air ventilation is designated under the VNT terminals, and then we can even also control a electronic air cleaner as well, if we need to, if the system has an electronic air cleaner. Some of the other options for relocating, or if you don't have enough wires in the wall, are remote sensors. So if you've got 3 wires and the user interface that I showed you earlier is acceptable for the consumer, by all means put the user interface in the area that it's going to be controlling. However, if cosmetics is an issue or what have you, we do have a couple of different sensors that can use. Earlier in my presentation, I mentioned a 8052. There's a picture of the 8052, and you can't really see it very well, but there's one that's actually installed, and you can kind of make out the circle in the wall. But you can paint it so it blends into the wall. It does stick off the wall about 1/8 of an inch, and that's allowing us to actually sense air temperature versus the wall temperature. With the wall being a little bit more dense, it's going to hold its heat a little bit more, and that 1/8 of an inch actually does allow us to break the sense the air temperature rather than the wall temperature. The 8052 is an outdoor temperature sensor. If you do radiant heat type applications, a lot of times people will remove the bracket or clip the bracket and put that 8052, the sensor, actually embedded in a radiant heating system, and then we can control off of the floor temperature rather than waiting for the floor to radiate its temperature up into the air and then sense the air temperature. So that's where the 8052 is used in a lot of applications. Obviously, it can also be used as a outdoor temperature sensor to sense what the outside temperature is. Then we go into what we call support modules. We've got 3 different support modules. The 8081 and the 8082 are both surface mount. They can act as sensors, but they can also have multiple flush mount 2-wire sensors wired to that as well to take averaging. So the 8081 allows to have 2 of the flush mount sensors connected to it, and then we have 4 wires back to the thermostat. We can have a total of 4 support modules back to a thermostat, giving us the ability to average up to 8 different values. And I say values because if I'm using an 8081, since that is a temperature support module, I can have a total of 8 temperature values. However, if I'm using an 8082 or an 8083, those both have one temperature and one humidity sensor built into them. So I would be able to average 4 temperatures and 4 humidities. I can also mix and match it. So if I wanted to monitor or control relative humidity in a family room, but the HVAC is also servicing the kitchen and a den or an office or a bonus room or what have you, I could put flush mount temperature sensors scattered in those other rooms, and then still control relative humidity in of that whole area, and still have 2 or 3 temperature inputs back to my thermostat. In that case, I would use one flush mount temp RH sensor, which is our 8083, and then I might have 2 flush mount sensors wired back to an 8081, and then I could set up the thermostat that I've got 3 controlling temperature sensors, one controlling relative humidity, and I'm only using 4 sensors in that case, but I could actually take an average that way. So I can't believe this, but I made Rick's hour-long presentation into about 40 minutes. So Rick, I'm sorry that I moved through this pretty fast, but I believe my last slide is questions. So are you back on the line, Rick?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay, good.
So,
Otherwise, I was going to have to do a song and a dance for another 20 minutes until you came back. So
no
you don't
worries.
want to hear me sing. You don't want me to hear me sing.
Yeah, can you go back a few slides and elaborate on the working with radiant in slabs and embedding? So is this something that you have to do during the construction phase, and it has to be planned out in engineering so that it can be embedded, or is this something that can be added to the surface?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, if you've got a finished floor, yes, you're not going to rip up the floor in order to put a sensor down. So yes, when there is radiant heating applications, you typically want to put the sensor in the slab as they're putting in or they're pouring their concrete over the radiant heating system or what have you. So yes, that's something you're going to want to do during construction. If it happens to be you got to them after that, what we recommend is actually using a flush mount temperature sensor, but rather than putting it at the 4 or 5 foot level where a traditional thermostat is, put it 2 inches, 3 inches above the floor, so that way we don't have to wait for that hot air, excuse me, that hot air to rise up to that 5 foot level in order for us to turn off the HVAC or turn off the radiant heating system. So yes, the answer is yes. You want to put that sensor in the slab before the slab is actually poured or what have you. So typically what will happen is the HVAC contractor or the plumber in that case will lay its coils, and while that coil is being laid, you as the controls guy could come in and put in a sensor before they cover it up with their concrete or whatever they're covering it up. Also, on another thought process when we're on the radiant heating subject, oftentimes what I end up recommending is put in like a 5/8 inch inside diameter piece of copper tubing, pinch it at the very end of it, and then you can use that copper tubing as a chase, so to speak, for the temperature sensor. In case something ever goes bad, I don't have to rip up the floor. I can still I can change out the sensor with that piece of conduit in there. And obviously copper is very conductive, so it'll transfer the heat relatively accurate. So.
Okay. All right. And then I think a lot of us have probably seen episodes of like This Old House and programs like that where they retrofit radiant
Mm-hmm.
by going into like an unfinished basement, and then they install like the aluminum channels that they put the PEX lines
Mm-hmm.
through. So an installation like that, would you want to use like heatsink paste or something and put it on that aluminum
Yes,
conductive
if you're
material, or
doing
put it, like you said, above the floor, like a couple inches above the baseboard?
well, heat rises, so you're going to be measuring floor temperature, and it's going to radiate a little bit below. But if you can put the sensor, if you are doing like a retrofit radiant heating type application, you've got access to it. I path of least resistance, absolutely take it up right next to the PEX heating, the tubing, and away we go. So.
Okay. And also, you
You know,
mentioned three
oh,
stage and four stage, and I think
yep,
I, I don't know that any of our integrators are really going to understand that crystal clear.
sure.
So uh,
So
you
what
have
stages
staff who
are?
can help us with this
Yep.
engineering, and if we call and say, hey, we've got this Train product or this Lennox product or this, XYZ. And then also, like you said at the beginning, most of our dealers are in the 8 states here in the central Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
we probably don't have a lot of boilers and things like that they probably see in the
Mm-hmm.
Northeast, but
Right.
we have the ability
At
to
the end,
control nearly all systems, correct?
yes, we control probably 99% of the equipment that is out there. It's that top 1% that, for some reason, they went with a proprietary type of control system. At the end of the day, my biggest for you guys, I would have your biggest takeaway is take a picture of the thermostat where the wires are connected, and hopefully we can see the terminals. That would be even better, so we know what color wire is connected to what terminal on the existing thermostat. If you're into new construction, ask the HVAC contractor, what thermostat would you use? Does it work with a traditional, Honeywell thermostat or a White Rogers thermostat, or a Nest or an Ecobee or what have you? If it does, we know we're in the clear because Honeywell doesn't make a proprietary thermostat, Ecobee doesn't, so on and so forth. So if they come back and say, well, I've got a Carrier or a Train or a Lennox or a fill in the blank with an HVAC HVAC manufacturer, that's when the follow-up question will be had, could I put in a Honeywell or a Nest thermostat if I wanted to? And the question, if they say no, that's where the red flag should be drawn up. If they say yes, that's where, okay, we're in the clear. I don't want you to put in a Nest thermostat. And maybe you even do this. Hey, could you put in the client wants to control it through their home automation system. Can you put in an Aprilaire, and give them a model number? Because we do have thermostats that do not communicate with the control systems as well. So, hey, can you put in a Aprilaire 8820 thermostat or what have you, and develop that relationship with the HVAC contractor. The last thing you want to do is have trades on new construction site that butt heads.
Okay. All right. So we've got some more questions here in the chat box.
Yeah.
So Mark is asking questions about multi-zone. The best way to manage a house that either has, and Mark, I guess you said multiple thermostats, so I'm going to assume multiple actual zones and not subzones through motorized dampers. Can you go?
Sure.
Can you go back
we can take it both ways. Take it back where? Where do you want me to go, Rick?
Multiple zones.
Okay, so I don't have a slide specifically on the zoning systems, but there's a couple of different ways zoning within your a house can happen. One is I have 5 pieces of heating and air conditioning system, or 5 pieces of HVAC, and you got one thermostat controlling each one of those pieces of equipment. So one does a master bedroom suite, one does the east wing, north wing, first floor, second floor, however you want to break up the house. And each thermostat connects directly to that piece of equipment that it's controlling. The other way is you've got multiple pieces, or you've got one piece of equipment, and then inside of the heating and air conditioning or the ductwork of the HVAC system, you have motorized dampers. There's a logic panel or a logic board called a zone control panel, where that zone panel takes the inputs from multiple thermostats and then closes or opens the appropriate dampers and turns on the HVAC system. We have zone panels. Typically that's something that's installed through the HVAC contractors, because when you start putting in dampers and you start restricting the airflow, all of a sudden it becomes, I'm going to take a page out of my, when I was a kid and I put my finger over the garden hose, and the hose all of a sudden, or the water stream shot, instead of, a foot in front of me, it shot, 6-7 feet in front of me, because I restricted the water flow, and the pressure got so high that it went further. The last thing you want to do as an integrator or as an audio video guy is to put in dampers not understanding, the issues with airflow, and now all of a sudden I've got a jet engine when, this small office might have the only, I've restricted the airflow down to the point where this one office, and I got papers flying off my desk and what have you. So if you run into applications, most of those zone damper type controllers, they work off of the traditional thermostat philosophy or what have you. So you can replace whatever thermostat is on the wall with our thermostat to allow you to integrate. So hopefully I didn't get too far in the weeds and it all made sense. And again, if you need more clarification, feel free to get with Rick or anybody at the AllNet team. They've all got access to my phone, and we can do a conference call or what have you if we have specific applications that need to be discussed.
Okay, so Jonathan has a question about some of the IAQ products. So he wants to know if he can order some of the IAQ add-ons, like for dehumidification and things like that, or if that is something that's strictly relegated to the HVAC contractor on the project.
Oh boy. If it's for your personal house, we have a personal use project or a dealer use, so that is going into your house or your showroom or what have you. We can work with AllNet to get, onesie twosies. But if this is something that you're going to be doing on a regular basis, I would recommend either working with an HVAC contractor, because AllNet has access to our thermostats that work with the automation system. They don't have access to the air filters or the dehumidifiers or what have you. So.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, Rick, I'm diverting the.
No worries. So we have another question that came through. This one's from Zach. He's asking about when we do the multiple sensors, can we set them up, or are they always going to be averaging, or can we have them set a particular sensor as a priority based on time or based on any other criteria?
Right. The current thermostat, it is an always averaging type application. There are other companies that, like Ecobee, you can say, hey, I'm in the master bedroom and I want this to be my primary thermostat. We are looking at doing some firmware updates to our thermostat, but at this point in time today, that thermostat, when you set it up to average, they just do an overall average, and we can't say from 9 o'clock at night until 6 o'clock in the morning, I want the master bedroom to be my primary sensor. But that is something that we're looking at and trying to figure out if we can do it with our existing thermostat or, on a future thermostat. So right now it's just averaging.
Okay. So Jonathan has another question here about multi-zone systems. So they had a recent project with 3 of the 8840s, and one of the zones had an Aprilaire humidifier, air cleaner, and ventilation control. So it says we only have one of the 8840s hooked up to the IAQ systems. Is there a way to share the control of the IAQ to the other 8840s, or will the other 8840s act only as simple temperature and fan controls?
The way it's currently hooked up, it only acts as simple temperature controls. So it's a bit of an overkill because you're paying for a nice color screen and what have you. But the humidifier, dehumidifier, and ventilation are all dry contacts. So in theory, we could have the other 2 thermostats, the hum terminals could be, the same 2 wires could be hooked up to all 3 sets of humidifier, ventilation, so on and so forth. But keep in mind that the humidifier is conditioning all the spaces. So in the winter, the last thing you want is to over humidify in an area, because all of a sudden you might get condensation on on windows or something to that effect. So if the thermostats, and again, I don't know the project specifics, but if you're monitor, or if you're controlling relative humidity on the first floor, second floor, and basement, the basement may not be able to hold as much humidity, but if we put it at 30% or 35%, upstairs might get 50%, which gets you condensation on your windows. So while you can do that, it's not recommended to do that.
Okay. All right. Jonathan, if you have further questions on that, I can make sure and pass along
Yep.
John's information.
Yep.
Okay. And then Jonathan has another question about specifically RTI. Can we give the homeowner the option to adjust remotely if they are away? Are you familiar with the RTI drivers operation of Aprilaire?
I am, and well, I'm familiar with what they can control within the Aprilaire products, and that is, I'm going to have to refer that back to RTI. I do not know if they've got.
Okay.
I believe earlier they had, like, you had to set up a VPN and stuff like that. So I'm not exactly sure if RTI offers off-site control of their system without some sort of VPN or what have you. Most of the control systems do, but I'm going to have to refer that back to the guys at RTI in order to answer that question.
So Jonathan, I know you're in Kevin's market, so reach out to Kevin. He's more familiar with RTI than almost anyone in our entire company. So Kevin can help you figure out how to
Kevin's got an
remote in.
RTI system, so.
Kevin, yeah, he's well versed in programming of RTI.
Right.
Okay, let me see. Corey's asking a question. I don't know if you want to address this or you want to take this offline. I'll pose it. The home control module and the 8081-8083 thermostat products, are they compatible with the Control 4 Aprilaire thermostat?
They are not. We also do make the Control 4 thermostat, and during that design of the Control 4 thermostat, they chose not to have these support modules be able to communicate. Now, the 2-wire flush mount temperature sensor can be worked with the Control 4 thermostat, but not the 4-wire support modules.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Okay, so Jonathan follows up here and he says on that multiple 8840 install with the IEQ, he goes, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, that is why we did what we did. Okay, and again, he asks on the RTI projects, it would be ideal if we could use the Aprilaire cloud as well as local control, but it seems like it's currently set up for one or the other. Is that the case?
Yes,
If it's okay, is that
is
something
true.
that could potentially be fixed through or be changed through a firmware without new hardware?
It's our belief that the consumer gets confused, and maybe this isn't true, but it's our belief that the consumer gets confused when even you look at a Control 4 system where or an RTI solution or whatever, when they integrate with a Nest thermostat, okay, so when I'm in the house, I should use the Control 4 app, but when I'm out of the house, I need to use the Nest app and stuff. So it's our belief that just confuses the consumer. So we try to drive the consumer that you always use the RTI or the XYZ control system for all of your control of HVAC. So we're trying to minimize the confusion of that. However, a lot of the IoT things, obviously lots and lots of things are changing. So we may have to revisit that philosophy of, look, we can drive the consumer to our app or the control system. I would have to review that with engineering to see if A, it's possible, B, if we want to do it, so on and so forth. But for now, the way it sits, it is an either or. Either you use our app or you always use the control system. Right now, there's no hybrid without going into the software of the thermostat and adjusting it. So the last thing you want to do is, okay, I'm leaving. Hang on, I got to go to my thermostat, go to installer settings, set up to the Aprilaire cloud. Okay, now I can go. And then when you come back, it's just a big hassle. So for now, it's an either or. But like I said, we're always monitoring what's happening in the IoT world and make decisions based on that. So the
Okay.
answer is no, you can't do that right now, but we'll continue to look at it.
All right. Thank you, John.
Yep.
All right. So a question came in from Randall. He had to step out for just a moment, so he apologizes if this is a redundant bit of
No worries.
question from the presentation. So the 8083 temp sensor and relative humidity sensor, can that be used to the 8040 series thermostat on a 4-wire connection?
8840. Yes, it'll work with 8840, 8830, 8820, or the 8800 thermostat. Those are the only 4 thermostats that flush mount temp RH sensor works with. So if he's referring to our non-automation thermostats that are sold through the HVAC channel, the answer is going to be no. He's got to jump up to an 8820, 8830, 8840, or the 8800, which was our serial-based thermostat from 5-6 years ago.
And those are the ones I loved. I used a lot of those when I was out in the field.
Yes, you did.
Okay. Corey's asking a follow-up question on Control 4. Is the 8840 compatible with Control 4 as a control system only? Also, does it talk similarly to the C4 system in a similar fashion to the way the C4 thermostat talks to the system?
Well, our Wi-Fi thermostats are Wi-Fi. Obviously, the Control 4 thermostat is Zigbee. So in that matter, they're using Zigbee, we're using Wi-Fi, but our drive, or the Control 4 driver for the Aprilaire branded thermostat, I believe I know it supports temperature and humidity. I believe it also supports ventilation, so on and so forth. So the beauty is our 8810, 88, all of our Wi-Fi thermostats use the exact same protocol, just scaled back. Since the 8810 only does temperature, of course the 8810 does not report relative humidity, doesn't view humidity adjustment set points and stuff like that as a valid command, so we just basically ignore that. With the 8820, 30, and 40, they do support different versions of that, so the protocol is all the same. So all of them use the exact same protocol. And like I said, Control 4 and us have a very good relationship to the point where, if something is wrong, I can call up Control 4 and have them make changes or what have you. So I think that answers that question, but I'm not 100%.
Okay. Corey says, thank you very much. Okay. So Mark has a question to elaborate on disabling the cloud and letting the control system take over. And I'm going to let you answer it, but I think it might be dependent upon the control system. So he wants to know if we can still have a control system monitoring and possibly controlling the HVAC integration and still allow either Alexa or Google Assistant.
Yeah, since we are using the control system as the where we talk to, at that point it's going to be contingent on whether the control system supports Alexa or Google Home. So if the control system does work with it, then the answer, and again, there's many different skill sets within Alexa. So if XYZ control system does support temperature control or climate or whatever, I don't know what skill set that is, but if they support that skill set, then yes, we would, since we're talking to the control system, Aprilaire sends that information to the control system then talks to the Alexa or the Google Cloud, Google comes back, sends it back to the control system, and then sends it onto our thermostat.
Okay, Thank you.
Now, with that being said, if you're using the standalone Aprilaire app, we talk directly. Our cloud talks to the Amazon cloud or talks to the Google cloud and does it directly from there. But then you're obviously eliminating the control system altogether.
All right, I'm going to scroll back through. I think we've addressed everything, but I'm going to scroll back through.
No, lots of good questions. This is great.
Definitely.
I may have to get back in front of the AllNet and figure out how we can do some trainings locally in each branch.
Well, Zydeck, I'm sure would want to take that call.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Okay. I think we've addressed everything that has been posed so far. If anyone has any additional questions, please feel free to type them into the chat box now, the questions, or I think that's going to be it.
Yep.
John, do you want to
send them
give
to your counter guy? Oh, I was going to say send them to your counter guy if something was like, man, I wish I would have asked that question, earlier or what have you. Feel free to get in front of your contact at AllNet, and like I said, they've all got my contact info. If they don't, they can easily get a hold of me. So
sure, and each of you are going to get an email from us with the information on the promotion for having attended today. So feel free to follow up with any questions that you might have, or if you've got any applications that you want to have reviewed, you're welcome to send them to us. And then anything, if we want some clarification, we'll reach out to John or reach out to the support team in Aprilaire. The support team at Aprilaire has been fantastic. I'm not going, we carry at least one other product that does what this product does. I'm just going to say that the support that we've received from Aprilaire has been absolutely fantastic. And I'll just leave it at that. So.
Thank you, Rick. I do appreciate that.
Yeah,
like I said, we're 80 years old. We do the right things. We're Midwest based, so our customers are the most important asset to our our employees are, and then our customers are almost equally as important because without you guys, we're not in business. So so we do value the customers and definitely take their feedback and try to implement it in new products and what have you. So.
Okay. Well, John, I want to thank you for your time today. And then everyone on the call, again, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to join us for this webinar session. And look for an email from me shortly outlining a pretty nice promotion that we've assembled for you. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to follow up with me or Bill or any of the members of staff at any of our 4 branches. So everyone, I would like to say again, thanks for attending. We're going to close the webinar now.